Welcome everyone to another Seating Dynamics quick class. Today we're going to be discussing maintenance. My name is Michelle Lang. Thanks for joining us. So even dynamic seating components are going to require maintenance. This makes sure that they are working optimally for an individual client. So there is a part of the component that actually does the heavy lifting. It absorbs and diffuses forces from the client, whether those forces are from extension, rocking, etc. And because of this force absorption and dissipation or diffusion, then this component can actually experience wear and tear. This is particularly true of the elastomers. There are springs and hydraulics used in certain seating dynamics components or other manufacturers' dynamic seating components that are less prone to wear. They can still wear over time. Now, you may wonder, why don't we use springs or hydraulics for everything if they don't wear out as fast? Well, for certain types of movements and to allow the client to return to upright, elastomers work better in certain areas of components than springs and hydraulics. And so that's why you might find a combination of these, but they will require the replacement periodically, and this is because they've done their job well. If an elastomer is really beat up and worn out, it has protected the client from injury, it's protected the equipment from damage. So we recommend that these are checked by someone at least twice a year, perhaps more quickly for someone who has more wear due to excessive forces or movement. One of the ways you might also know these require replacement is if somebody on the team notices that the client is not positioned as well as they should be. So perhaps the client is positioned poorly because the seat to back angle has opened as an elastomer has become more worn. By replacing this, we can ensure the client is in the very best position. So this is an example. A colleague of mine, Jill Sparacio, who works in the Chicago area, works with an adult male who had worn out the elastomer in his dynamic rocker back. The personnel at the residential facility where he lives noticed that he wasn't looking quite right. So she went and took a look, and sure enough, the seat to back angle was too open. The back was sagging somewhat. So here's what the elastomer looked like on the left before she replaced it. This clear elastomer has been greatly distorted. It's shorter, it's wider, it looks like a mushroom on top, and it's even darkened as it's thickened. This is because it has taken that much force from this adult male rather than the equipment. So she replaced this with a new elastomer like you see on the right side, and his seat to back angle was restored and his posture was improved. So what do we do? Well, with the dynamic rocker back, it's important to replace the elastomer if it is worn. There is a kit that includes all the pieces that are required to replace these elastomers in the dynamic back, and there's an instruction sheet included. Who does this? Well, usually the supplier, though really anyone handy with some tools can do this in about 20 minutes. There is a cost for the replacement kit, and this is typically billed as a repair. It includes impact elastomers and a cap, as well as rebound elastomers. There's actually two sets of elastomers in the dynamic back that allows the back to move rearward, absorb force, and then return to a starting point smoothly. An important option to keep in mind is if you already know what level of resistance works best for an individual, let's say it's a blue level of resistance, when you order a replacement kit, you can ask that all of the impact elastomers be blue. And that way you do not need to replace this kit as frequently because it will contain enough elastomers to replace those several times. What about those other components? Well, the springs and elastomers and the dynamic footrests and the dynamic head support hardware should also be checked regularly, at least twice a year. The springs in the dynamic footrest will not require replacement as often as these elastomers, and there are kits to replace the elastomers in both the dynamic footrest, um, the knee elevation and the plantar and dorsiflexion options use elastomers, and those can be replaced as needed. There's also kits to replace the elastomers in the dynamic head support hardware. So, what's the bottom line? Well, just like a lot of things in life, dynamic seating components need maintenance, and this allows them to function at their top performance to help meet an individual's needs. Remember, a worn elastomer has done its job well, and we need to reward that by replacing it as needed. So, check those components regularly, at least twice a year, to make sure that you have the appropriate elastomer performance in there or spring for an individual so they can truly benefit from this technology. Here is contact information for myself and for Seating Dynamics, and I hope you can join us for another quick class here in the near future. Thank you very much, everyone.